When the A319Neo, a flying wonder of Airbus' tireless development, first took flight, its underlying reaction was apathetic. Orders were coming in at a really sluggish speed, and uncertainty started to cloud its future. Yet something special, surprising happened that has set the Neo up to get back in the saddle. So what changed? To comprehend this, we really want to go back to the beginning. Back in 2017, Airbus presented the A319, divulging the amazing excursion Neo, its replacement to the profoundly famous A319. The co or current motor choice has a place with the A320 family and had an incredible section into the market because of its exceptional abilities and benefits. You see, the A319 was conceived out of a longing by travelers to fly more slender courses. The A319 is essentially a more modest form of the A320. Airbus clipped away pieces of the A320, lessening fuselage length and scaling back overwing exits. However, they kept a similar motor, which went out to be a distinct advantage at the time. That is, since while the A319 could have lost around 15 traveler limit, when we contrast it with the A320, they acquired a monstrous scope of 3,752 nautical miles. That is an incredible 400 additional nautical miles than the A320. This made the Co an extremely famous airplane for carriers. Truth be told, Airbus sold more than 1,400 Chiefs and became one of Airbus's top-rated planes, and reason enough for Airbus to ultimately send off the A319. The Neo, or new motor choice, are essentially the up-and-coming age of the A320 family airplane. Airbus had seen extraordinary accomplishment with the cutting-edge motor contributions with their A320 and A321 new motor choice airplanes. So it checked out that Airbus chose to have a go down that course with the A319 and created the A319 Neo, particularly as they had added thought process in attempting to contend in that equivalent market with Boeing's 737-700. Yet what sets the A319 Neo genuinely separated are its advancements. A319 Neo versus A319 CEO, unraveling the jetliner confrontation. First off, the Neo comes outfitted with either the Jump 1A and unadulterated power PW1100 JM motors. Both of these choices of the Neo class have an edge over the CFM 565A and V2500 A5 motors of the Co class. Yet you could say this was to be anticipated, given that they are in a real sense called the new motor choice. Still, the Neos offer a 20 expansion in departure distance and a just about 9% expansion in push. When contrasted with the COS anyway, what truly strikes out for the Neo are its wingspan. You see, while both the Neo and Co are essentially the same size with a length of 111 feet 3 inches and fuselage aspects of 13 feet, 7 creeps by 13 feet. There is anyway a slight contrast when it comes to the wings. However, the Neo's wingspan being more extensive and their wing region being bigger, making the wingspan longer than the Co. Anyway, this change adversely affects the Neo's reach, and that is on the grounds that the fuel tank is more modest than that of the Co. So the Neo has 80 nautical miles, not exactly the Co, which isn't much yet. Very, however, intriguing to note, shockingly, the Co has a more prominent usable fuel limit with their 7,980 US gallon limit, north of 900 gallons higher than the Neo's 7,060 yet. The Neo consumes less fuel each hour with 2,210 kilograms, contrasted with the 2,600 kilogram consumed pace of the COS, which makes it more eco-friendly, which in the present age ought to make the Neo more interesting to aircrafts and air terminals. It is likewise critical to take note of that. The Neo offers a higher greatest traveler limit in a solitary class setup than the Co with 150 against 140th. Not terrible, but not great either. By and large, the Neo is somewhat ahead in terms of execution and limit. However, with regards to orders, it turns into a no challenge. The Co model is such a long ways in front of the Neo that while they have sold in their hundreds, the Neos haven't even sold 100. It's practically ridiculous. Truly, in any case, assuming you look all the more carefully, it's as a matter of fact not a shock. Don't get it. The unanticipated, unexpected development turned the 319 Neo is a magnificent work of designing and should be up there with one of the most amazing airplanes planned in late history. However, there's one trick: the absence of interest. Since when it comes to the flight business request is presumably the main thing you could plan an airplane that can fly for 3 days. Relentless, it still wouldn't be requested via carriers if there was no interest. That is the issue. The 319 Neos have been confronted with. In spite of Airbus's earnest attempts, they appear to have gaffed a piece with the creation of the A319 Neos. It's conceivably they let the outcome of the A320C and A321Neos get to their heads, since they might not have acknowledged they previously had an airplane that could offer comparable choices to the Neo, and that airplane was none other than their A220S, and specifically the A220-300 SRS when Airbus obtained a number of Bombardier C-Series jets in 2017 and rebranded them to turn into their A220 class. They presumably didn't have the foggiest idea about that. It would contend with one of their planes in future, having had its most memorable trip in 2015. 3 years before the Neo, the A220-300 EOS had proactively started to get some steam in the market when the Neo was prepared. The A220 was at that point generally satisfying the requests of the travelers, who might have in any case favored the Neo. It's most likely an instance of poor timing, since contrasting the two airplanes, the A319 Neo appears to offer more, generally speaking, than the A220. The Neo may be more modest in size, however, it really houses around 15, a bigger number of travelers than the A220. In a two-class setup, they likewise have a higher greatest departure weight of 75.5 tons, contrasted with the 70.9 lots of the A220. Added to this, the Neo likewise offers a higher reach with 3,700 nautical miles against the 3,450 nautical miles of the A220. So one could likely start to ask why the A2230S have been more effective. And one response would be the expense. You see, the cost for a Neo would slow down you around $101 million, contrasted with the $90 million of a solitary A220 that is around a 10 increment. So on the off chance that you were in carrier who had a decision to make in the midst of conditions like the pandemic and rising fuel costs, you would most likely go for the savvy choice. The limit of the two planes likewise plays a job sought after in light of the fact that the greater 220 airplane has the lower traveler limit, which implies it is substantially more open than the confined-up NEOs, which leaves a gulf meager traveler solace between the two. Anyway, it's not all ruddy for the A220, as the fly has been adapting to a major issue for the last 90 days. As a matter of fact, it is this issue that sets the Neo up for a huge rebound. You see, the A220 has as of late been motor hardships and high-flying show, tormented by various motor issues brought about by their Pratt&Whitney outfitted turbofan or PW1500G motors. These motor issues prompted various reports of motor burdens, bringing about additional carriers crushing their A220 Armada Take Air, Baltic for model, whose whole armada comprises of A220 planes and are presently compelled to rent planes to adapt to the continuous travel request. Then there is Iraqi Aviation Routes, which was likewise compelled to ground their whole A220-300 Armada by the Iraq Common Flight Authority. German transporter Lufthansa answered to have likewise grounded 33% of their A220 Armada. These are indeed the main transporters who have needed to ground their A220 airplanes. The incessant issues, joined with rather sluggish times required to circle back for the adjusting of the broken motors by Pratt&Whitney, have prompted more administrators getting anxious. Some are even constrained renting substitution, like Air Baltic, as they stand by on Pratt&Whitney. However, this isn't Airbus' greatest worry with the A220. You see, with the rising issues being untold capability of the A319 Neo looked by the A220s. It could be a matter of time before their biggest administrator, Delta, starts to contemplate about a substitution, since in such a case that these motor misfortunes, what's more, store network issues, continue to happen. There is an opportunity that Delta, who have the biggest A220 Armada on the planet, will start to look somewhere else. Delta isn't one to sit by to keep a watch out, rather they expect and make a move. So Airbus is in somewhat of a difficult situation, and this is where the A319 Neo becomes possibly the most important factor. For a number of reasons, you see the Neo's motors are not selective to Pratt&Whitney and hence can't be bound to the production network issues. Besides, the Neo has the additional choice of offering a higher traveler ability to the A220s and keeping in mind that they might feel a piece squeezed contrasted with the A220. It is unquestionably not squeezed to bargain braking levels. Then there is the Neo capacity to fly a longer reach rather than the A220, which opens up a chance of various courses making it more adaptable. Yet that isn't the greatest reason. The most compelling motivation is just the Neo is important for the A320 family, which implies the cockpit is planned in a very comparative way. For what reason is this significant? You could ask, well, first off, it makes a parcel of sense for administrators that as of now own an armada of the A320 family to contribute in the Neo, that is on the grounds that the A319 Neo is essential for the A320 family. So pilots try not to require additional preparation to work the Neo. This will save carriers expenses of preparing new staff, as well as trading harm parts for aircrafts like Delta or Air Baltic. This makes so much sense as they wouldn't need to depend entirely on the A220. However, rather they will have the Neo too to change it up in there. Armada, this applies particularly for Air Baltic. Yet in any event, for Delta, this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance long haul in the event that you consider that their A319 Co. will before long should be supplanted at any rate due to maturing. What's more is that along these lines, the A319 Neo will be a stream that can hold the interest on different business sectors anyway. This doesn't appear to be the course most aircrafts are going. You see, most carriers essentially need greater airplane, particularly in light of their expense adequacy. Yet additionally, due to the expanding absence of schedule openings and entryways at air terminals, we see this at Seoul Aircrafts, the transporter with the most noteworthy orders for the A319 Neo, as of late changed over their orders for the bigger Neos, which implies 30 of every one of the Neo orders were immediately cleaned out and their overabundance dropped from 92 to 61. Talking about greater airplanes, there have additionally been reports of Airbus having plans to extend their A220 into the eagerly awaited A22500. It very well may be the situation where Airbus is going for an invert move to how they manage their A320 to get the A319, and on second thought extending and not contracting their planes still since the A220 hasn't even been earned. Back the original investment, there's still an acceptable approach before the bigger form turns into a reality, and we additionally need to remember that fostering another airplane takes time. While the A319 Neo is accessible presently and can possibly satisfy the necessities of carriers for both short and long haul, so it will be nothing unexpected to us that we will before long see an enormous rebound of the A319 Neo. Yet what do you, outro, think? Assembling the entirety of this, it appears glaringly evident what the qualities of the A319 Neo is, and checking the current out circumstance with the A220. It appears as just a question of time before carriers will begin searching for another option. Still, it's a question of if their qualities are considered sufficiently significant for carriers to take a risk on them. The latest things favor bigger, more savvy airplane, so in the short term it could look depressing. However, there's each opportunity that market opinions change for a plenty of reasons. The establishing of the A220s, for instance, which seems like the beginning of this change, and the carriers who put resources into the qualities of the A319 Neo currently could harvest the greatest prizes.